the Castilian, 2 commanders, then the sergeants under them, and overseers roughly equivalent to commander.
Do we have a direct communication through to the command center from where we are?
Yeah, you have a Voxcom. You can contact him with them.
Okay, if Tharos opens up his Voxcom to the command center. Is it commander? Or is it not? Yeah, I'm sure it's just the commander of the area, isn't it?
Castilian?
Yeah, Castilian, that was what I was thinking of.
Fortress Castilian.
Castilian, this is Tharos. We'd like to call together a strategical meeting as soon as possible. We've amassed the equipment we have down here, and I think it's best we get this on the move.
Excellent. Do you have a plan to take out the enemy war boss, or
Well,
you just want to coordinate the defenses or coordinate for a strike?
Well, ideally, we'd like to pull all of our options and find out how we're best actually going to deal with this threat. We have some ideas about basic positioning, and we know what we have in order to defend. Now we just need to know what tricks we have up our sleeve within these walls. You know this fortress better than anyone, Castilian. Do you and your men have any suggestions yourselves?
Not an easy task.
And if there's a place you'd rather we gather for this, at your leisure, Castilian.
You can join me in my command station in the fortress.
Cousins, unless you have any more pressing tasks, I think it's time we go join the Castilian in the command fortress.
Why not?
Castian will head that way.
Harvick follows as well.
Renegast follows behind them.
So you guys make your way from the opposite end of the base now towards the fortress. God, where's the pattern name? It roughly like 3/4 of the way along the base where the fortress is situated.
We have all this Prometheus. Could we not, in an attempt, tar the land around the fortress? Oh, would that fucking blow up the fortress up?
Well, we do have our option. I'm assuming we're talking as we're walking at the moment.
Yeah.
We do have our options. If we can pull them down into a bottleneck, we have enough guns, enough firepower here to cut them down. The only trouble is pulling them down said bottleneck.
Another option would be to identify the most likely places for the war boss to be. We as a unit strike out and use the defenses here when we pull back to open a hole for us when we're coming back from our strikes.
Let's save it for the council, cousin.
But our ideas are the ones that count.
The mind of man is able of many tasks. We are outnumbered here. We have the firepower, but we don't have the numbers to hold them back. The trouble with these war bosses is, of course, they're going to be where the most orcs are. So we've got to get most orcs into a single place. For that, I fear, cousins, we're going to have to put forward a front outside the walls initially. And then fall back, but hopefully the Castilian will give us a more direct information we could perhaps use.
I have an idea that the orcs may be more susceptible to tricks than we like to think.
By this time, you guys have made it to the entrance of the Fortress of Redemption, located in the base. As you make your way up the stairs into the command room, you are greeted by Castilian Caffron and Commissar Malik.
Excellent, Commissar. Are you the only Commissar we have?
Yes. He nods at you curtly.
Strong man to shoot his equals.
Morale, I guess, as always, will be key. It's a pleasure to have you, Commissar. Castilian, any update on that Stompa?
The Stompa hasn't moved since it was hit. We're assuming that it's disabled. Nothing more than scrap.
We'll have a clear sight into their mechanical capability and how fast it takes them to get that Stompa up. So, Castilian, Commissar, Astartes. I'm sure it's no mystery as to why we're gathered here this evening. This will be the last time we have to properly discuss our defense before all goes down. Fortunately, with the Castilian and the defenses taking out the Stompa, it'll be a lot easier a task. However, I fear the task before us is no light thing. So, if anyone has any suggestions, any critical information to the defense of this fortress, now would be the time to share it. Theros kind of looks over the room gathered.
The orcs, they're not attracted to sound, are they? We couldn't grab all of the voxcasters, put them in one place, and blast as much sound as we can to attract them all to one area.
We need someone who's adept into the psyche of an Orcan. I myself know orcs to a reasonable extent. I've had enough experiences with them, but sounds to attract orcs. We need Yarrick himself.
A young-looking aide helpfully pulls out his Imperial Guard primer. Suggests that orcs are scared by loud noises.
Orcs
Expressing my laughter.
scared of anything apart from their knob falling.
Commissar and Lord Castilian look at him and shoo him away.
I think perhaps we could try and issue them a challenge. They seem to always want to prove themselves to each other, so maybe if we tried the same tactic, they'll try and fight us.
Commune with the Xeno?
Well, not really
Even
commune.
for a duel?
Just kind of shout at them.
Which wall was the Leviathan on again?
Leviathan is to your east right now.
Okay, yeah, I
East
remember.
wall. You came in the west wall. Those fortresses along the south wall.
So, gathered Imperial servant. We know that the most defendable part of the wall is the east. I'll put forward all I have. We all know the equipment we have. My idea would be to push out the east gate with 3 of the 5 chimeras. The idea behind the strategy would be to create a front, and what would be required would be to hold off for long enough to amass as many orcs as possible. If we can put a heavy front off, we're going to make a situation that the war boss is going to have to deal with, regardless of whether he sends his big guns. Eventually, he's going to have to show up himself. Castilian, remind me, did you say we have any ammunition? Is that Leviathan still operational?
Part of the standard armament is operational, but the macro cannon on the front of it, there's only 1 round left, and it hasn't been fired since before the Leviathan became stranded here.
Not reliable at all.
Not at all, but it still has its armament, and it's still the thickest part of the wall. Castilian, it may be time to use that last shell. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that you'll have to send your tech priests, and we'll lend any of our support that we can, if required, to make sure that that cannon goes off.
That may put the fortress at risk.
It's the most defendable part of the wall, cousin, and this fortress is already clearly far into risk, and it's going to continue to be in risk unless we can get the attention of that orc knob. If we get them at the east gate, we have the chance to end it there. If the macro cannon is operational, if it's not, we still have a lot of fire support from those walls, and if we can get a pinpoint on him and get a shot with the macro cannon, gentlemen, we get an early evening home. However, things won't always go as planned, and I don't expect this to either. So, if it does not go to plan, we fall back inside after being pushed by the mass of their force. They'll push a lot harder when the boss is there, allowing us to fall back inside the walls. We can funnel them down the north street. The rest of the siege engines and armor we have, I've put out. As he speaks, he points to several points on one of the cogitators, displaying one of the sort of strategic layout. With let's see, 1 second, sorry. Let's see. The Ragnarok would be inside the east, near the fortification in the center, covering the east street from the wall, covering our retreat. One would be positioned south to cover for any potential flanking attacks. That would give it enough time to reconvene around the fortress in the center to cover if it needs. Imperial troops stationed on the walls, that would be the 200 we have for use. The rest of the 200 would be positioned on the walls as ordered by the Castilian to best defend the perimeter. And once we're in our Penal Legion, they can be stationed in buildings on either side of the north wall. We can use that to strike in. We'll keep them away from the street and push in through the buildings towards the main street at our order. This will hold them in the main street, and who knows, we've got Prometheum here, we can get inventive, but that's a basic defense with a plan and a B plan and a defensive retreat in order to exterminate as many of the greenskins as possible. That's all I've managed to amass at the moment, cousins and Imperial servants. This is just a basic defensive plan. Any Deathwatch Astartes, or any Astartes for that matter, should be able to come up with something like this. However, if it comes to this, we need anything we can get. Explosives made, manufactured, Prometheum, any small advantage that will give us an inch in this conflict will be required. So anything you can come up with, feel free. And if anyone has any objections or any suggestions, they're more than welcome.
So we know from this war boss's actions that he likes to loot things. If we lead a series of strike raids on his salvaged equipment, we lessen the likelihood of the places that he is possibly going to be himself. And it's potentially going to grab his attention to draw him where we want him.
See, my fear is that we know the war boss is somewhere around these walls. As he speaks, Castilian, Theros glances over to the Castilian again. Castilian, what has the orc activity been around the walls as of late? Have you noticed any gaps in the line, or are we completely surrounded by this point?
Since your arrival, the orcs have completely surrounded the base.
I expected this. A strike would be potential, but I fear that all their looted area will be scavenged by lower level orcs.
Well, this would also encourage them to keep their armor and scavenged vehicles further away, allowing even our less powerful defenses to be devastating to the orc numbers, because they're more likely to be on foot rather than in armor.
Have you fought any large conflicts against orcs, Castellan? No, Castellan, rather.
From the air.
Hardly a fight.
I don't think the greenskins are treasure the shinies they're going to be throwing at us this evening, rather than are too obsessed with what they may gain inside the walls. I think there's merit in what you're saying. My fear would be, however, locating the mass of their armor. I think at the moment, if I'm correct, and Castilian, I'm sure I would like you to confirm if this is true, there will have been small raiding warbands of trucks and bikes skirting the perimeter of the fortress and the firing line all around. Have you been? Is there any area in the wall that's been tested more than others, Castilian?
Other than the north face where the 2 guns were taken out, no. The elimination of the orc artillery by your team earlier has helped with the defenses on the south side.
So then, the north side is the weakest. If we can't lure them away from there, we're going to die.
The east is the strongest. North is the weakest. Yes, that's one thing I did forget to mention. The penal legions, in order to ensure that we're not going to straight up lose the north side, as there's a good chance they'll attack there. I believe the penal legion should be placed on either side of the north gate until they're required to flank on the east street. It would mean we can only flank from one side, but if it come down to it, we have other options for firing positions on the south side of the east street.
You mean the west or the east gate?
What?
There's no north gate.
There's no north gate.
No, you came in the west gate. There's an east gate.
And there's just a north wall where guns were.
Yeah, there's a section of the north wall that the guns have been knocked out.
Oh, that makes it easier. Yeah, that works perfect. Because if the penal legion were backing up the 200 of the 400 Imperial troops that were already defending the wall naturally, it'll put more resistance there. And with the siege engines at the center fort looking up the main streets, they can move to any street they need to in order to give firing support. I keep on wanting to say Felhammer's name, but it's so close. It's so close to Castilian. It's throwing me off so bad.
That's one of the characters' last name is Felhammer.
Castian, there we go, Castian.
Castian Felhammer, that's the full name.
So Castian, the suggestion, how would you go about implementing it exactly?
Strike raids by using artillery fire to open a hole, using the Chimera to bust out, and then they fall back. And then when the raid returns, they bust out. The raid returns, they fall back in.
There's merit to striking first. However, I fear it may leave us in a worse position.
Only if it fails. But no matter the plan, if it fails, we're in a worse spot than we were before.
Theros looks a little bit visibly sort of discomforted with the fact of pushing out the walls so deep into Orc territory.
Do not feel discomfort. Feel hatred. Your hypno training should have been enough.
There's plenty of that, Radiga. Do we have any suggestions as to how to give us a few more inches if it comes down to falling back inside the walls? Any ideas how we could use the Prometheum?
Well,
Theros looks towards Castilian, or any other potential armament we have here.
the Penal Legionnaires. They know of guerrilla tactics. Why not have them do some sabotage with the Promethean? Small kill teams, 5 men each. Sneak around, maybe even just the back lines of the orcs, spreading Prometheum around and bedding it in the dirt, the sand. Just making it a little bit more fertile for bombardment.
Commissar Malik interjects, if you have to decide whether you want to draw him out or go out to fight him, that seems to be your main problem. But if you needed a distraction, why not send some men out of the east gate or the west gate while you slip out the other one? Deploy the base's armor in a skirmish. Use that as cover. Either draw him out or for you to slip out and find him, or draw him into a battle.
Well, that's not bad. An assassination would solve everything. But we went through an awful lot of trouble just to come here in the first place.
The issue I have with these plans, cousins, is for the Penal Legions, they will not get to the back of the Lipbox line, for there is nothing but orcs, no matter where we go at this fortress. If we push out, there is the chance we find the war boss. There is a chance we get cut down, lose half our number, and are back in these walls in the same position. If a strike is what everyone seems to be falling for or moving towards, as it were, I will support this notion. We'll push out, we'll try to find the boss, and we will hope that our luck has changed. My personal suggestion would be to make sure we make do by creating a front on the east gate, as I said before, and try and grab the attention of the war boss. But that's a strategy. It's not a plan. I would say to add, my fears stem from the fact that if we go out there and we get cut off from the fortress, we might not even be here to defend it. It may fall before we're back. So we do a strike team. I'm not sure everyone here will be able to go. Knowing that we'd have to cut the squad for a strike team, as we obviously cannot leave this base undefended. It would go against our order and our duty. Would everyone be still in support of this approach, or would anyone have any more suggestions? I'm gonna go grab my coffee as you guys discuss.
We stand stronger together. Splitting up will not help us.
And if the waves do attack, Astartes are strong, but how much of a difference will we make against a tide versus going out and striking?
Whose characters were all in Armageddon again?
Well, I'm pretty sure Mom was.
Mine was not.
Oh, Joe, are you sure about that? The only reason why the Marines Malevolent exists is because of Armageddon.
That's true. But, not before, but after that.
The Dark Angels were not there.
Commissar leans forward. As far as the penal legions are concerned, it is their honor and redemption, their only shot at redemption, to die in service for the Emperor. And I'm sure that every man in this fortress would be happy to do his duty for the Emperor.
As they should be, Commissar.
Without question.
I would be disgraced if not every man in this room would give his life in a heartbeat for the Emperor.
So if the Deathwatch strike out as a strike force and the Penal Legion stays here, the fort is still stronger than before we left and its defenses than before we came.
I cannot in good mind leave this base undefended. We just made it here, barely. I understand that we're stronger together and I completely agree. However, were you in my position, would you leave the base completely undefended to a Penal Legion? Their job is to die, and they're aware of it. They will fall. And as they should. But that does not change our mission at all. If we left the duty of our mission in hands of a Penal Legion and lost it, we would all be disgraced.
And should we succeed in our assassination as a strike force? The glory is there, brothers.
There's much to be gained if we strike the right location. There's much to lose if we don't.
And that's what's here, though. Right now there is no right location. There is a mass of green. And somewhere in that mass, there is a bigger green spot than the rest.
So we can put the defensive plan into place until we have identified the most likely places for the war boss to be and strike at that time.
The most likely place for the war boss to be, though, is where the most orcs are. How are we going to break the entire position of where the most of those orcs are with 5 of us? When we struggled, we couldn't even deal with 100 of a branch chasing us back and behind these walls. You want us to take on hundreds of orcs? We can't get through the massive greenskin to get to a single boss and take him out, cousin, without killing them all. And I am all for killing greenskins. In fact, I don't have many joys left in the verse, but greenskin killing, of course, will always be one of them. I'm not sure, even with your heavy bolter and your abilities, Castellan, that we could carve through that many before running out of ammunition and returning to our claws and fists.
But the defensive plan was to draw them to one area, yes?
The defensive plan was to put out a front, and that front, if we were to do it, would definitely require Astartes. Otherwise, that armor would be lost and given up to the orcs outside the walls. Without us, that's a suicide charge.
Then grab another drink while you guys discuss.
That line will not hold for nearly as long enough to gather the massive orcs there. And without gathering the massive orcs there, we're not going to gather the boss. That's the trouble with this strategy, or all the strategies, mine, yours, all suggestions you could possibly come up with. Inevitably, in order to get to our target, we need to go to the biggest clump and mass of orcs. And for that, well, even with these blessings from the Emperor that we've received, this new fine equipment, I'm not quite sure we have quite the firepower for it. That would be my concern. If we send a front out, of armor out the east side, if we get spotted once, that may put that entire planet in jeopardy. The boss wouldn't be led on to something else was up. It would be all pulled towards the same area. A lot can go wrong, so if we do a strikeout, we wouldn't be able to push out the east gate quite the same. We could make a diversion, but it would have to be a different one, otherwise we'll lose the armor.
I'm back.
Or at least I would recommend a different one if we're not going to be in that line ourselves.
Castellan says, I would rather not lose the armor. And then the Commissar butts in, with respect, Castellan, it's their duty to sacrifice themselves for the Emperor, and if this brings an end to the siege, then that is not a waste.
Arvek, you have yet to weigh in.
I think the strategy of striking out could prove useful.
The Stoic awakens.
If we go to find the orc, there will be lots, but if we wait for them to attack or try and draw them out, all of the orcs will attack us. If we can find the area with just the boss, it won't be everywhere.
And like I said, if we're going to strike out, it's needless pushing that armor at the east gate. We'd have to think of a different approach to gather their attention. The only reason the armor would work, in my opinion, with the backing of the Astartes would be to visibly put shinies out in the open that would draw the boss in and tempt him. And then, with that, he may just catch, if he's not already, which I'm sure he likely has, the Leviathan placed in the wall, which is, of course, the most holy and valuable thing we have here. However, it is also the most stalwart of defenses. So, if you were all so hellbent on sacrificing your lives for the Emperor and a push out, how are we going to get their attention without throwing away all of our defenses? Theros gestures to the room, open for suggestions.
I believe it was the Castilian that suggested using the armor at one gate while we go out the other.
Oh, that was the Commissar.
Alright, the Commissar.
Are you asking the Commissar for advice?
No, I was just saying, he said, what about the ideas? And I was reminding him of that idea. Of using the armor at one gate to draw attention while we go out the other. And the armor doesn't have to push out to be vulnerable. It just has to grab attention.
What if this just splits the orc forces, making it harder to find the war boss?
Well, with them spread out, when we do find the war boss, there's going to be less with him. If they're clunked up, we'll find him easier, but there'll be more with him. So we really have to decide what's the best case scenario. Spreading the orcs out as much as we can, or clumping them all together and fighting more of them once we identify where the war boss is.
If we can get them in front of that macro cannon, we could end it very quickly.
That'll destroy more than the war boss, brother.
Exactly. All the orcs around it for quite the radius.
You're thinking too small still.
The macro cannon has been used before, cousin. It's part of the defenses it's meant to be used.
Perhaps not so close.
I don't believe it was necessarily meant to be used, or they would have more than one
Castilian, has the macro
for it.
cannon been used before?
Not in living memory.
But it has been used, correct?
Not since before it became stranded here. It has not been used probably since before the last siege.
Okay. Can you have your best engineers over that way and basically ensure its ability to function?
The Magus Paramus is oversees the Leviathan, and most of the base operations he's located there.
Can we send for him?
I already have, but he has not come.
It may be that he was tinkering with it before you announced it, that it was necessary.
We'll have to talk to this individual. All the same, we're here now, we may as well continue. If this macro cannon is functional, will that change anyone's opinions or suggestions or...
I really think it's too lethal. We should have closed up and we'll all be wiped out.
I think if it is functional, we should change up the, like, going forth. We should try and, like, maybe be stealthy, find where the orc is, and then fire at that location.
Well, the gun's only pointed east. It's built into the wall.
Hopefully the orc's east then. and we can just vaporize him.
1 in 4 chance.
So once we have assessment of the macro cannon, we can decide if we want to try and pile the orcs up on that side. And if it is not functional, then we can try to come up with a plan to make a strike work.
Indeed.
You know,
all the same, regardless of whether that works or not, it still has other armaments on it other than that macro cannon. It's still the easiest area of the wall to defend. However, unless we put a front out and get their attention, my fear is they will hit the weakened north wall.
you know, even if we don't manage to kill the war boss with the macro cannon, if we gather enough of the orcs around and blast them with it anyway, we could take the opportunity, since all of the orcs are weakened by that, to actually send out the assassin strike force.
Exactly. If we can use that macro cannon, we'll make enough of a split in their formation that we'll be able to go on the offensive even though we are completely and utterly outnumbered. However, if we put armor up, they're not going to hold for long enough to gather a lot of orcs there. If we were to put a strike force, I'd recommend that at least Castian remains with the heavy bolter. I would want to say more, but I fear that less than a strike force would be futile. If I'm honest, the idea of a strike force is a little bit suicidal, but the Emperor protects.
Well, the macro cannon idea means that we're staying here. We're not necessarily striking out. So that's the next question we have to answer is, will the macro cannon work?
Yeah, it will very much be pivotal on that macro cannon. All the same, if the macro cannon doesn't work, we will want ideally to be pushed on the east side. But if we're pushed in the north, things could get very interesting. That's why I would personally opt, let's see. What do we have? The 2 colossal siege engines. I would personally, and 1 Ragnarok actually, at least by the fort in the center, to cover the either retreat down the east gate or be able to reposition to face the north wall and a possible breach. During all this, remember, we will likely be struck from the skies. It won't just be range. As we know, orcs will get in very quickly if they get the chance. And with all the armor we've been hearing about dotted around, I assume that they'll very much have storm boys. But our most melee capable would be the most capable in a strike run.
Would we want our best shooter?
Well, yeah,
Shooter has to stay back.
Yeah, the best shooter. So I mean, if they did come with storm boys, you'd kind of want the melee guy chilling with the best shooter to make sure the best shooter keeps on shooting. Sword, guns out, swords in.
Arvek and Castian.
However, as Castian said, it is pivotal on this macro cannon. So I suggest we either go and find this individual or find out for ourselves. Sadly, we don't have any tech priests with us, but Castian, you said we find him on the east gate as standard. Is he always there, or is there any other place he may be?
You were asking the Castilian?
Yeah.
Boy, that's tearing you apart. Castians and Castellan?
Castian and Castilian.
You're giving it to me.
What was the question again?
I was asking whether or not the I can't remember who you said was the carer of the Leviathan. Where you said he was, is it just
Magus?
Magus, that's the one. You said he was in the
Pramos. He should be in the Leviathan superstructure itself.
Shall we head back to the Leviathan superstructure then?
I would like to have a look at it myself. It's not every day you get to see such a holy relic.
What's your final plan, then?
Find out if the macro cannon works. And then decide the plan.
If it works.
If it works, gather the orcs in front of it and shoot.
And then smash out into the scattered formation. Well, shoot with all guns, not just the macro. What other guns did you say? What other armament did you say the Leviathan has, apart from the macro?
Oh damn, you're just pulling up the list.
It's because I know it's, if I remember correctly, I remember it having a decent amount of armament on it all the same.
Doomsday cannon, battle cannon, last cannon, heavy bolters.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we want them to hit. So if that macro cannon works, it's not going to work. I get a feeling it's not going to work. Alright, yeah. Castilian, keep us updated on any change. We're going to head over to this Leviathan and see what we can find. Matron Martian? The guy.
Castilian nods, and everyone goes back to doing their regular tasks.
Theros takes a moment to move over to the Commissar. Commissar, how has the morale been of late? I understand you have 400 men here.
The Commissar nods. Morale's been fine since your arrival.
The men here, are they experienced with it? Have you had much conflict here, or is this the first you've seen in some time?
For most of them, this is the first time, but some of the men have been cycled off of the front lines with the Tyranids. With what little rest we can afford, especially for the injured.
Josh just gives a little nod and then heads out after the other start. To the east gate then.
Alright, so you all file out and start heading to the east gate.
Like a very metal school trip.
Everyone gets on the bus. Everyone gets on the Chimera. Chimera.
Has everyone got your lunch boxes?
So you make your way over to the Leviathan without incidents and enter through the rear door, which has been built in what used to be the ramp for armored vehicles to move in and out. As you make your way inside, you see that the hangar has been turned into more of a shrine for the Mechanicus than a vehicle bay. Dominated by the large skull and cog motif of the cult.
Where is the Magus?
Theros' eyes his brow kind of furrows a little bit in light concern seeing the shrineage.
Notice that actually, everyone do a perception check.
Ooh, first roll.
Wake up, Stoic.
Arvet?
Salamander!
Oh, what? Confused. What's going on? Did I
Perception
miss something?
check.
Open your eyes!
Are you even with us? Listen.
What did I miss? I'm confused.
Get off the
We're
camera!
doing a perception check.
Oh, we are? Okay, my bad, sorry.
You missed
We are not watching porn.
you missed Havel's description and everything.
Oh, I got the description, I just didn't understand what was going on. I didn't hear my name at all, so I was like, oh, nothing's happening.
You heard it from the
He notices nothing. Only Radagast notices the cherubs in the corner who appear to be eating a rat.
What the fuck?
Why didn't you even
I love it.
Saint's gonna like steal one of them.
That's one way to keep a place clean.
No, Theros is just oblivious to the cherub. He's used to such natural behavior, so it just
You also
blends into
notice
the
that
background.
you also notice that most of the doors leading further into the structure appear to be welded shut and covered with shrines, except for the ones on the upper catwalk leading higher into the structure to the second floor.
Brothers, a way up is clear.
There is a metal staircase that does lead up to the second floor, which I'm assuming that you now would like to make your way over to, unless you would like to poke around the bay some more. It's large enough to hold 4 Lehman Russes and the munitions and the equipment required to work on them.
And is there anything that sort of stands out that's there, or anything that's being worked on at the moment, or is it...
There's nothing in there. It's been completely devoted to the worship of the machine god, with insets and scrolls pasted everywhere. Every once in a while, Radagast notices the shadows among the upper parts of the superstructure where cherubs are floating around on whatever tasks they've been assigned.
Do not worry about the many doors, brothers. Follow the cherubs, and our way is enlightened.
I'd be interested to meet this matron.
Radagast grabs Arvek and pulls him by the leg from the Chimera. Heads towards the stairs.
So you make your way up to the second floor, and I'm assuming you look for a way to enter. Seeing none, you do what?
Wait, so we're entering the upstairs?
Yeah, there's a data lectern next to a closed door on the end of the catwalk that you've made your way up next to the only visible door.
But
Ah, fuck. We're about to get stuck, aren't we? What,
Salamander, press something.
You want me to press the console?
Fucking open the door.
Okay. I mean,
is there any obvious, like, face servitors or anything?
I can punch the door. I can headbutt maybe.
Havel, is there any sort of obvious face servitors or anything on the systems by the door?
Nope, it's just standard lectern with some buttons on it.
Oh god damn.
Okay. Motherfucker.
How about
Alright, who's got the best perception? Who's got the best perception?
I'm at 50.
I'm at 47.
Who's got the best highest
I'm at
intelligence?
50.
Has anyone got an intelligence above 50?
I have 40 intelligence flat.
As you guys are poking around and talking amongst yourselves,
Fuck's sake.
making noise, a voice comes over the comm in the lectern. It's heavily modulated and screeches at you in machine speak, and then switches to Gothic. What is your purpose here, Astartes?
To enter this room!
We have come to speak to the keeper of this holy shrine.
I am speaking.
We would like an audience with you.
The door is open.
Saros walks through him. The sound of his heavy step ringing out from the metal catwalk.
Brother, say I don't trust this door. I will stay out here. Keep me on comms.
Cousin, fear not the door, fear the greenskin.
I'll head to the door.
Greenskins. Do you think the greenskins can open this door?
So I was just gonna shake his head and just walks in.
I'll stay out here.
As you walk through the door, you see a large open room that goes from the base of the machine up to the top of the third floor, where you see more catwalks and things in the distance. But running down the center of the room is an ammo belt that looks like large shells can be fed onto, leading up to the breech of the macro gun. In one corner, you see the last remaining shell installed in a shrine with prayer scrolls and incense and the usual machinations of the machine cult. And on the other side, you see a workshop where the Magus is standing over the bodies of some cherubs.
Theros starts to approach him. You say Megas.
Yep.
My brain keeps on wanting to say matron for some reason.
I fucking ate the rat. The cherubs.
As you approach, you can see that the Magus has got one of the cherubs split open in the back and is operating on the interior mechanics.
Megas, I am Thera. It's a shame we meet under such circumstances. I've come to ask you some questions about your shrine here.
Rather than look up from his task, one of his 6 ocular implants extends out from his hood and fixes on you, while his hands and mechanoids continue to operate. What do you need with me in my shrine?
Theros lifts his gauntlets up to his helmet, unclasping it as the pressure break, and takes it off. There's a slight sanguine features obvious. Magus, I believe if this shrine is still able, its holiest time may be coming. It may finally get to carry out its duty once again. However, it is prevalent on it working. We are here to ensure that this fortress and this shrine and the blessings bestowed upon us by the Imperium stays in Imperium hands. As I'm sure you'll agree, that is the most important thing. So all this is not sullied with such xenofilth. However, it may very well rely on the function of this gun. Tell me, Magus, can you make it work? Can you allow it, or place it in such a position where it may carry out its most sacred duty once again in the name of the Emperor?
Pulling his hands from the back of the chair, the Magus steps away from the table and turns, without looking at you directly, as his eye stalk retracts back under the cowl, walks towards the breech of the gun, gesturing with his hands and his mechanoids. The machine spirit has been troubled by the presence of the orcs. He gestures up to where you can see panels flashing, most likely the targeting arrays for the weapons.
Theros furrows his brow and conveys an expression of sympathy, almost.
But I don't think that the ordnance... Oh, I'm trying to remember the fucking mechanic's name. It doesn't matter. I don't think the macro cannon on the front of it will work.
Why do you say that?
The machine was irrevocably broke when this base was first founded, shortly after the planet was colonized.
That guy shoots to the comms. Did you ask about the gun yet?
We're asking now, Radigat. So what you're telling me, Meg, it will not fire? Or do you think you can quell the machine spirit enough to allow it to carry out its duty? No one knows this more than you, surely. How much time do you spend here, Megan?
Turns to you, the gun will fire, the cannon will fire, but the entire machine is out of alignment. I doubt you'll notice, but the back of the machine was broken. If the gun fires, it's possible that it could rip itself loose from these walls and back in to the superstructure itself.
And you have no way of securing it? Or do you have any way that may remedy this?
If we had a way to reclaim and repair this magnificent machine, it would have been repurposed and sent back out onto the battlefields.
I understand that this is a very holy place. I understand that you have tried your best to preserve it, and you've done a magnificent job, as so I can see here. However, knowing that in this hour such a glorious and holy shrine would possibly face complete debauchery. Knowing this, is there nothing you feel you could do in order to protect its sanctity? Knowing that in order to change it, although sullying it somewhat prevents it from falling into vile corruption, is there anything you think you could do in order to stabilize it, Magus? Or is it beyond you?
Oh, damn it, I should have stayed in the room.
You know, you got scared by a door, you just stay out there.
Yeah, but you're playing the sympathy card. It's not going to work on the machine.
Oh, I'm not playing sympathy, I'm more just, I figured that he would be preserving what it was, knowing that it may have to fire, or knowing that it's in its best interest to fire. He may make changes now that he otherwise wouldn't have because he was too busy trying to preserve it, type thing. And it's not so much sympathy, more just falling on his beliefs, which are holy. The Emperor himself made a treaty with Mars.
Okay. It sounds like you're trying to relate with it.
Yeah, we all have points of relation. We all humble servants of the Emperor. It's not my first time dealing with the machine cult. Although, I wouldn't expect Marines Malevolent to have machines such to become acquainted with.
You should be shaking him. Shaking him and telling him he has two choices. Defilement or destruction.
The Magus shakes his head. I've already turned loose the main battle cannon and the remaining lattice turrets at the behest of the Castilian. Firing of the macro cannon would result in the destruction of this shrine and defilement of the machine spirit.
Can the shell itself be detonated without being fired?
God damn it.
I like
Do it.
Throws his nice arrow a little bit.
Vegas's eye stalks bend towards Castellan. Yes.
What kind of effect would you expect from an explosion without being fired from the gun?
Oh, are we going to fireship this? One Chimera. Fucking 10 Penal Legion. Fucking macro cannon shell just shooting out the east gate after we get their attention.
Can the Penal Legion drive a Chimera?
Hold their attention. It doesn't matter. Get the driver for the Chimera. Hold their attention, gather all the orcs together, and then just send out the fastest armored vehicle we have with the shell loaded in it, and just cover it to all hell.
The detonation of the shell would result in an explosion with a radius of 254 meters.
Oh. Well,
Tell me, how would the walls hold up? How would this Leviathan hold up? Its armor is strong enough, yes? For a blast from outside of radius.
Vegas looks at you quizzically, and I'm not sure what you mean.
How far would the shell have to be from the walls to prevent them from being destroyed from the blast?
Saras gives a little nod as to...
a crackle shoots up from the box. Can the gun be fired? Tell me something!
You cannot, brother.
We're exploring our options. I have yet to ask about the rest of the armament, but the shell can still be detonated.
Minimum safe distance would be around 600 meters. Result in fragmentation raining down into the base, but should leave the walls unharmed.
Thank you, Magos.
600. That's a long way.
Hell of a long way.
It's a hell of a lot of orcs in the 600 meter. It would basically be 1,200 meters. Because we're talking radius, not diameter.
And then, if we fail anywhere during that whole trip, then they have the bomb or the shell.
And a big old doorway for walking in.
Yeah, that's not
There
sounding
will-
so hot.
There will be no door left. There will be no walls. There'll be nothing.
We'll keep it in
I'm
mind.
saying.
We'll keep it in mind. Just try to run through some ideas about what potential uses for this shell. And meanwhile, Magus, what else can you tell me about the defensive capabilities of, or armament of this fine shrine? What justice can be dealt forth from its armor? Without the macro cannon, I'm sure it's still heavily armed. Correct? How are the rest of its armament currently?
He had said earlier that the battle cannon and remaining last cannons are in use.
The Magus nods to Gastelum.
Was there heavy bolters and so forth as well as, or
All the heavy bolters around along the side, which would be sort of inside, not pointed towards the enemy.
have they been repurposed, Magos?
Only the two on the front of the machine are still active, along with the two las cannon emplacements, the main battle cannon and the macro cannon.
Fox fires up again. Brothers, ask him about these welded doors. There's a reason for them. There must be.
Magus, my squad mate is curious about the current condition of this shrine. We've noticed a lot of sealed off doors. What can you tell us about it?
The doors were mainly sealed as a precaution against random people entering, as the Leviathan no longer serves its original purpose and there's no need for a crew or personnel other than myself and my engine seers.
Damn. Alright, so then, what does that give us?
Did you have any other questions, Theros?
Well, we've established the main reason we came here. The macro cannon will not fire. The shell, it's risky. I think we should talk about it more once we're back in the company of the Castilian. Is there anything else anyone would like to ask the Magus while we're here? Magus, you were requested to report by the Castilian. Why did you not respond?
I did not see the importance.
Is it not your duty to care for the shrine?
That is exactly why I did not leave it.
Theros' brow furrows again. Protection of the shrine lay in that command room, Magus. We had to come here to find you.
Gonna hurt your face if you fucking burrow your brow anymore.
I'm gonna head back out to where Radagast is.
Magus waves you off. My job is to tend to the machines of this installation. It is irrelevant what the Castellan wishes.
If the Castellan's wishes are not fulfilled, your machine falls.
Alright, now shake him. Fucking pick him up and shake him, goddammit.
Is there a point to this conversation?
Of course.
I grow tired of looking at your flesh.
Pick him up and shake him.
Magus wipes some oil away from where his mouth used to be.
What are you doing here at the moment, Magus, with these cherubim?
I am correcting errors in their cogitation.
And what have you been doing since the attack started?
I have been servicing the machine spirit of this shrine as it engages the enemy in its limited capacity.
Who supports you here? I'm sure you have an under.
My engine seers, who are currently servicing the broken machines of the Astra Militarum.
And where may I find the servants?
In the machine bay that you doubtlessly passed on your way here.
I thought you said that was empty. Oh, the machine bay, my bad. Not the thing that Leviathan.
Nope.
Theros nods courteously and heads back out after Castian. After he's back outside the building, he waits to make sure everyone else is still out. Is anyone else checking anything inside, or?
I've got the salamander by the boot. I've always had it by the boot.
Havel, as we're heading out, can I roll another perception test and see if there's anything I catch on the way back out from the bay?
Sure.
Ah, fuck. Rolled a 92, never mind.
Somehow got blinder.
Blinded by his frustration with the mag. Once everyone's outside, Theros starts heading towards the machine bay direction, gesturing for everyone to follow. I'm unsure about that, Meg. Perhaps he is just caught up in his work, but I'd very much like to talk to his unders.
He is cold. They are all cold.
I'm not sure we'll be able to use that shell. However, I hate to say it, but it maybe end up being the failsafe. All the same, if it will end up being the failsafe, we'll have to get the maggots out of the way. But enough of that. Once we get to these unders, we can figure out exactly what we can do. Without the macro cannon, all we have is the bulwark sturdiness of its armor, and what armament the wall it offers alongside its own.
Whoa.
At this point, it's not much later in the evening from when you guys originally arrived in the base.
You did not explain properly, brother. The gun does not fire?
It does not fire. At least he claims it does not.
The gun will fire, but doing so will destroy the machine and create a hole in the wall, because the gun is no longer fastened to the superstructure. The shell itself is still live and will still work, but in order for it to be safe for the fortress, it would have to be 600 meters out, which would be very difficult to get it that far out without it going off or being swamped.
There is the option of still firing it.
Yes, I don't see a problem with still firing it. Once we reach that point, it won't matter if there's a hole in the wall. All the orcs should be away from it, granted that we have made a successful distraction.
Well, if there is a hole in the wall, at least we can guarantee where the orcs are going to be pushing. There is that. However, the Magus will not allow that to be fired, surely. Unless I can convince him of the sanctity of his duty. It's a slim chance, cousins. I'm hoping that their unders will provide us some more information we can work with.
He seems under the impression that his duty is not ours as well. He seems to think that our failure is his gain. He's a problem.
He is a problem. But not our biggest.
No. But if we were to counter opposition, he would be included.
Yeah, well, it's not come to that yet. If we do look to fire that shell by the end of this day, then we'll cross that bridge when we come with it. He may be the only one who can fire that shell for all we know. Likely very much is.
Maybe
So we have a little bit more information. How do we want to proceed?
Well, personally, I'd like to talk to the guys in the machine shop, see what they can craft together. I'd also like to talk to them about the Promethium tanks and the potential distribution of it for use on the main street if we fall back inside. I'd also like to talk to them about armor and the damage extent on the north wall. And they can also let us know about their opinions. Once we make all friendly with them and get the camaraderie on the way, we can start asking them on the side a little bit about the Magus and see if they can give us any useful information as to his current psychological state.
perhaps some kind of bastard hand flamer could be made. Something small, even if only single shot, passed around to the multiple legions here. It should help sufficiently.
If it comes down to it, cousin, the very act of putting it in glass bottles with rags, anything we can get. We did ask the Castilian to fashion as many explosives as he could. He said it may not be possible, but he said he was looking into it. With any kind of luck, we can also pass out some hand explosives to the penal legions for guerrilla warfare on the streets. But that remains to be seen. I do not fancy our luck. Our luck has not been very accentuous since we've been here.
Just as a reminder, you did talk to the people, the engineers, and the guardsmen helping them in the garage on your way in the two bays that were working on the Hellhound.
Yeah, that's what
And they did tell you that the fuel pumps are broken for the Promethean tanks, and that all the fuel that they're getting out is being hand pumped out. While you do have access to it, you do not have access to all of it.
Yeah.
It's all good. We can fill some canisters and put them in the buildings near the inside of the north gate. Damn, it was hard. We still have options.
God damn, things are looking bad. So, the obsidian skulls gather up and return to the Castilian.
Oh no, we're heading to the machine shop so we can ask those guys about the Megas.
I want to ask about the Megas.
Yeah, so we can get an idea of his psychological state. He might be absolutely mental for all we know.
He's a robot though. As close as he can get.
He's not all a robot.
As close as humanely possible, and a little bit mechanically possible.
He may have fallen to obsession. But if anyone has, yeah, I should mention at this point, if anyone has any suggestions of any immediate plans of actions for as of now, by all means, if there's anything anyone can think of.
Bring in Lord Malik. Have him talk to the Magos. Whatever happens, a solution will happen because he cannot leave without one.
I'd rather avoid a confrontation with the Magus until it's absolutely necessary. Like I said, he may be the only one that can shoot the gun.
Fair enough.
Like I said, if it comes down to it, we kill him and rig the shell inside the actual Leviathan itself, set Prometheum around the inside of the wall, lure him in, and take out as many of them as possible.
No. Let's not kill him. Let's have Malik kill him. If we do it, it's an assassination by the Inquisition. If he does it, the Magos is a traitor.
How he dies is not important if he died. All I'm saying is that, ideally, I'd like him to be there to actually fire the gun if required, instead of just setting off the shell inside the Leviathan. In short, I'd just like to keep our options open as possible until it's absolutely required that we start closing those doors.
It might be around time to let a day go by.
So,
It's getting there.
we talked about whether we were going to strike out or stay in based on the macro cannon working or not.
Yeah, we didn't really get a solid answer on that though. It works, but it opens the wall too. So we did get a kind of an answer, just a very, very grey one. Not making our choices uneasy. You guys are all mental, so I'm pretty sure you guys will all be fine with a hole in the wall. I'm a little bit unnerved by it myself, but
It's too bad we can't convince the orcs that it would be a good idea for us to fire the cannon against them, as it will open a hole in the wall and let them in. And that we can't tell them that we'll only fire the gun if they all gather in one spot. It's too bad we can't ingrain that idea in them. I think it'd be hilarious.
I do have one ace up my sleeve in persuasion regards. My character skill, gregarious. As long as I RP it, I can give some random speech or talk that may manage to sway things. But yeah, it's sketch.
As long as you don't try to speak orc, I'm fine.
To the orcs, what?
Actually, scratch that. I'd love it if you somehow tried to be gregarious to the orcs.
I thought we were talking about something in the bag, so I'm not gonna try and talk to orcs.
That'd be goddamn funny. I know you want the megas, but I'd sure love it if you tried your best to befriend the orcs, only to blow them up, losing renown and the respect of your peers and gaining victory.
While you guys are talking and walking, you do hear the sounds of the fight continuing to go on as the orcs trade shots with the wall.
Conflict arises, brothers. And maybe needed soon.
Would the Magus have been the person to ask about the North Wall? Actually, no, guy could be crazy. Let's go talk to the machine bay. Sorry for it.
But, brother, the conflict. The shots traded.
That hasn't stopped since we came here, brother.
Well, it is edging on my mind.
Fret not, it will be to the forefront of your mind before long.
That is good.
I'm going to run and grab my coffee from the kitchen as we continue up here back.
I mostly just want to kill shit right now.
But this is a lot of planning. It's good for you.
I mean,
Take my heavy bolter to the wall. Fire down on him.
I get where you're coming from.
Can I just load my jump pack with Promethean?
Not on the ground.
There'll be plenty of action before long. So much that you'll be sitting in it thinking, man, I'd like a little bit of planning right now. Because this combat sure is going tits up.
You don't need planning if you're dead. So...
Well...
We don't have much to do. All we got to do is talk to the machine bay, and then we'll have our full assortment of information, and then we can make a decision. But we need to go talk to the machine bay first.
You said you
What is up with that gargant?
Pardon?
It's
not a gargant. It's a bunch of loudspeakers in the back of a truck. Or rather, the front of a death roller, I think.
It's not made for orcs to play on. I'm scared.
One of the machines has been rolling around outside the base, yelling at the humans inside to give up.
What is it, Lord Orcmungus? Just walk away?
Pretty much.
When this begins, that infurious noise will be the first thing to go.
Alright, so Saint, you want to talk to the people in the machine shop. And everyone else is pretty much broken up, and Castian has gone to the walls with Averick. Or
Yeah.
Arvek.
We're much more interested in taking pot shots. I don't blame them. I'll stay with arrows.
If you guys want to check the perimeter when you're up there, that's something we probably should have done. Slip like sharpish as well. You guys want to check the sort of general defenses and give an eye on the north wall as well if you can. Trying to inspect the damage for yourselves.
That's where we'll start.
Individually check the guardsmen, just in case they're a commando.
See if you can find out any information from the guards posted there as to any obvious patterns that may be emerging from pushes, night, day, frequency.
Alright, so you get to the standing in front of the garage when you all split up and go your separate ways. And Saint, you see the engine seers working on the Hellhound while there are more human helpers are taking a break and getting ready to retire for the night.
Justin strolls in, his left hand going to his chest in a sort of a sign of acknowledgement. Glancing over the Hellhound. Will it be ready by this evening?
The engine seer stands up and does a slight bow to you and says, "No, my lord."
Do you think you could repurpose this armament to the fort?
I do not think that would be practical. disassemble this whole machine and remount its armament on top of the walls.
Oh, not on the outside walls, on the inner walls, inside of the center fort.
The engine seer consults with one of its fellows. He turns back and shakes his head. No, the holes can be dragged. Everything's operational except for the engine itself and the track, the mounting.
Oh, excellent. Oh, if that's the case, yeah. If you could have this repositioned on the east side of the inner fortification, facing up towards the east gate, as soon as possible. In the meantime, I'd like to ask some questions about the defenses here, and any late goings on. In particular, the Leviathan Dreadnought embedded in the wall, and the Mega. What can you tell me of these things?
The Leviathan has been here since before the fort and is inoperable. The superstructure is fractured.
And the Mega, a good man?
Poor Jasir, you're confusing him with these emotional answers and questions, nods, notions.
He is a capable adept.
And how does he keep the Leviathan? You say he cares for it well?
He vigorously shakes his head, yes. He prays 5 times a day and anoints the oils and sees to everything himself.
And who would you say has the best knowledge of the Leviathan other than the Magus himself?
I would say that it would probably be myself or any one of the other engine seers. We are all entrusted with the care of the machine, and that is where our quarters are located when we're not performing our duties.
I understand that the Magus likes to take personal care of a lot of the Leviathan's need himself. I understand a lot of you are not allowed in there all too often, by the seams of it. Tell me, could you and your man operate the Leviathan if it was required still? Could you still fulfill your duty?
We are capable of operating all of the Leviathan's functions.
Excellent.
So I would not advise that.
Why so?
Why not?
The superstructure of the Leviathan is flawed, and firing of the main armament would result in it possibly tearing loose from the front of the carriage.
And you have seen the evidence for this yourself, I assume, yes? Or is it just under the instruction of the Mega?
Yes, and our duty is to curate the machine.
Wait, did he say refute?
The what? The engines here?
Yeah, what did he just say, sir?
In our duties to curate the relic.
Okay, yeah, I misheard. The Prometheum supply here, and from what I understand, is the devices for pumping are malfunctioned and you're resulted to hand pumping. Is there any way the fuel supply could still be used in an aggressive sense?
We have 52 drums of Prometheum on hand for supplying the fuel to the Hellhounds.
And am I correct that there's 2 functional Hellhounds as well as this Hellhound here you're working on? Or do you only have 2 hellhounds total?
We only have 2 total. These are the only operable hellhounds in the fortress, and they're both out of commission. One you can visibly see has its back end torn off and the track loose, and this one is sitting up with the engine out.
I would like you to patch these up as fast and as best as you can. I'd like you to install them by the fort, one facing east and the other north or west, north or west. North to the weak wall or west towards the other gates.
Well, the north is still a wall.
Yeah.
Can it shoot up?
Well, that's a long way away from you. It's a flame based. It'd be able to shoot up fine, but it's a long way. It's a long enough street between the middle fortress and the outside wall.
It's getting visibly darker outside.
I'd like to get these hellhounds set up on the north and east. I'd like you to build defenses on either side to section off the entire street and make a bulwark wall either side of the Chimera and have it facing down each of those streets. One north towards the weaker area in the wall on the approach to cover any breach, and one east.
The engine seer nods and relays your instructions to one of the guardsmen sitting nearby, who goes over to a Vox unit on the wall and boxes confirmations from the Castilian, the command. And immediately all the other guardsmen jump up and start making ready your plans.
Hey, before we leave, maybe we should give this engine seer contact to our private Vox castle. At least the channel. That way, if things go tits up, we don't have to rely on the Magos to do some trickery later.
Yeah, Theros gives a little nod. Do you have a direct channel we could contact you on, should we need to?
The Magus nod.
The Magus?
I mean, the engine seer.
Oh shit!
We've been
He's on to us!
We've rumbled.
The engine seer nods.
Your work this day will depend on whether or not this fortification stands. Do your duty, and the Emperor will protect.
Yeah.
Now,
The engine seer makes the sign of the cog and bows.
and now for something completely different.
So Theros sort of turns out, still addressing the sort of crew members. Any extra armament, any extra defenses you can pull to the center of this fortification. Now would be the time to do it. Oh, one more thing. Do you have any explosives?
The guardsmen look confused and shake their head, and just, other than the hellhounds, sir, no.
Is there anything you think any of your men could fashion explosive-wise? I'm sure you have a lot of talented individuals here when it comes to working with machine. Is there anything you any individual members here who has a knack for the like?
They all shake their head, looking towards the engine seer in turn.
Theros gives a little nod and sort of heads out, helmet still under his left arm. So what do you think, Radagast? We find ourselves in an interesting situation once again.
Treason is in the air, and it is not from us. The guardsmen, let's hope they are confident enough to carry out your plans. The engineer is not with them all the time. I fear incompetence will be the end of us this time.
That's why I was so relieved to see that commissar.
As you're talking, alarms start going off in the base.